11:05, I think we should probably get started. There may be other people joining us, but we should probably go ahead and start for our exciting forum today, because we have a lot of people on who I think some people are new and we want to share some ideas, and we have a great presentation we're looking forward to on Linguafolio Online. So I'm Jacque Van Houten, and I know most of you. We at KWLA have been having this morning Tuesday and afternoon Thursday forum to try to help teachers share ideas and see what's going on out there now that we've had this big change toward NTI, and think about where we're going in the future. So Jennifer?
Yes, so our norms are, the schedule for the day is we'll have our guest presenter speak for about 20 minutes, and then we'll go into breakout rooms, small groups, and chat in smaller groups, and then come back and kind of share out any insights or ideas that we had throughout the meeting. So do you want to introduce our presenter, Jacque?
Sure. We're really excited today to have Stephanie Knight here from Oregon, all the way from Oregon, from Castles, and presenting on Linguafolio Online. Many of you know Linguafolio from the past, when we were one of the original states to pilot back in the print version. But we have now, is this the second or the third online version? We've updated, I know, many times.
We'll call it 2.5. It's not quite the third, but we're hopefully getting there.
Okay. And as you know, in Kentucky, currently still perhaps hanging on are the standards that are based on the I can statements. Well, I should say the I can statements from Necessful Ackville are based on the Kentucky statements. Anyway, there's a close symbiosis among those statements. So we should all be somewhat familiar with them, and that's also what Linguafolio uses. So this is an exciting resource to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's free until July 1st.
It is. They are student accounts that we've essentially just created one giant group of students. They can't see one another because of privacy issues, but they can upload whatever they want to Linguafolio Online for free, and those files will stay. So if they end up using it later in a classroom, even a year down the road, those files will still be there when they're able to reaccess their accounts to the paid version.
So
yes.
I'll let you go ahead and take over, and just suggest to everyone to consider use of Linguafolio as we go forward. I would love to have seen it in the past, but now is a really perfect time for it. The more we go toward online and toward also self-regulated learning. So Stephanie?
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Thank you. I am particularly honored to be with you all today because I am a Hilltopper, former Hilltopper, graduated from Western Kentucky. So anytime that I can be with people in Kentucky, I am quite happy. So thank you for having me. Today we'll go quickly through Linguafolio Online. We'll talk a lot about the what and the why. And then also I'll give you a quick overview of some critical features that are in the platform. It will go very quickly. It's not intended to give you a lot of technical prowess, I'll say. However, I'll tell you where to access PDF guides with step-by-step instructions and things along those lines at the end if you're interested in exploring it more. So I will share my screen. Feel free to type any questions into the chat. And let me go into presentation mode for you all. So Linguafolio Online overview. As I said before, we'll discuss why Linguafolio Online, a quick overview of features, and I'll tell you how and where you can get help. So why Linguafolio Online? Really, in a nutshell, it all boils down to learner empowerment. And I mean this in a very learner-centered sense, that the classroom is very learner-centered. Students become self-regulated learners. They're able to engage in effective goal setting and reflection, and really progress as language learners using this tool to facilitate those interactions. Quickly, to give you a quick overview of the reflective cycle, we see reflective practice as a transferable skill. There's been some great research, mostly out of the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, related to how Linguafolio and other language learning portfolios have impacted language learning and growth. And one particularly amazing study was that the students who demonstrated higher levels of goal setting and reflection actually had higher ACT scores, not only better scores in their world language class, but higher ACT scores across the board. So this is something, if you're talking to a principal or something along those lines about incorporating this into your school, I think it's really compelling evidence to support that argument. And I'm happy to pass along those that research or any other research that we have if you're interested. But we see the 4 essential phases of reflective practice. The first at the top, we have goal setting. To the right, selecting strategies. So these can be strategies for language learning, strategies for text comprehension, strategies for vocabulary learning, a variety of strategies that are at the students' reach so that they can really have a good plan in place for moving through creating goals. You also see at the bottom, creating evidence. It's essential that students have artifacts that are personally salient and relevant about their language learning that help them think back and self-evaluate, and as well as reflect on the process of language learning. So you'll see I've added as well these arrows in the center. Once students become highly adept at reflective practice, what they'll find and see is that it's a little more messy than just a circular cycle would entail. Though certainly when we start with them, we start with goal setting first, and we think through the processes in a more circular fashion. But once they get better at it, they'll see at self-evaluation, it's not even that they need to go back and set the goals, their strategies didn't work for them, or they have to go back and look at their evidence again. We can see it be a little less circular, but definitely focus at the very least on these 4 phases with your students and any resources you can have to help them develop their skills as they relate to those phases. So one of the big reasons why Linguafolio Online works is it really facilitates efficient engagement. As you might guess with the reflective practice, you can create a variety of resources, a variety of student work samples, both related to reflection, thinking about strategy selection, and the actual evidence that they create. So it can become overwhelming in terms of the teacher of having to dig through all of that, provide feedback, and knowing where to do that. What's nice with Linguafolio and Linguafolio Online is that there's a holistic feedback scale. So you don't spend a lot of time bean counting. There's not like -5 for missing accent marks and -10 because you didn't have a title, things like that. That's something that really encumbers a grading process. And we actually have found through many years of research, it doesn't really facilitate ongoing growth. It really focuses the students on errors instead of communication. And so this feedback scale of this is a goal, can do with help, can do and can do well, helps you give the students a more holistic picture of where they are and helps the students self-evaluate that way as well. Another nice thing about Linguafolio Online is the online part. There's a bunch of storage there, there's unlimited storage at this point, and any file type you can imagine can be uploaded to Linguafolio Online. Everything within the Office suite. You can link Google Docs through web links. There is not a direct link to Google Drive at this point, but you can still link them there, and just clicking the link will take you directly to the students' items. There's text entry. You can upload photos. You can also do audio recordings on the website as well as the free app that accompanies the website. The only platform that does the video recordings as well that students can just take on the spot as they're practicing languages is the app itself. But like I said, it's a free download. It's for every student that has an account. They can use the app at any point. Which brings us to our next point. Here you see some screenshots of the app at play. You'll see at the beginning, you just sign in. It's a pretty simple interface, but this really facilitates our learners using language wherever they are in the world. If they have access to a mobile app and they are, for example, or to a mobile device, and they are, for example, ordering at a restaurant where the target language is spoken, they could take a quick recording and automatically upload it right then and there and not have to worry about cumbersome activities like file download and transfer and things along those lines. We find this particularly salient in communities where the target language is spoken quite widely. There tend to be a lot of opportunities for the students to interact. Also with heritage language learners, they tend to have a lot of opportunities, and so they tend to favor the app over the website in terms of evidence capture. But you'll see you can upload evidence to assignments that the teacher has created. You can upload evidence to can-do statements that the teacher has identified as your learning targets. And you can also upload evidence to can-do statements that you as a learner have selected as your own personal goals. So making Linguafolio online work for you. This is there's a website called lfonetwork.uoregon.edu, and this is a website with a ton of free resources that are available to teachers. This is on the homepage, this graphic you see right now. It's really designed for classroom learning, and so we have to shift it as we think of increasingly online context a bit. But what you want to do with students is really start off with talking about why goals are even important, how they help focus your learning, how they help you progress with intentionality, and help your working memory be focused in the areas that are most efficient for your ongoing growth. You'll see teachers set goals for the class, but it's also critical that the students are involved in that process in some way. So even if you've selected can-do statements already for the class, ask them to think about how those can-do statements might apply to their life. Ask them to think about the specific context in which those can-do statements might be relevant. So for example, something about forming greetings. Those greeting sequences can take on quite a different look depending on the context and the people or groups of people with whom we're speaking. And so having students think about what they should really focus on in relationship to those goals and how they align with those contexts is really helpful in increasing their engagement as well as their autonomy. You see Linguafolio Online allows you to select focus can-do statements. All of the example, necessful, actful can-do statements are preloaded, but there's also a space as teachers where you can type in any customized versions as well for your students. So anything that you've tweaked for context or your students have asked for that's not already there in the pre-existing list of examples, feel free to enter. Then as a teacher, you're going to design activities and tasks to help the learners meet those targets. Right now, since we're shifting to more autonomous platforms, obviously the learners have to be involved in that process as well. Help them, and we have a series of materials that are about to be published, and I will send along to Jackie and Jennifer the link to those as soon as they're published, about really having students think about what those tasks might be themselves and having them brainstorm those as well. So as they're at home learning languages, they're able to continue the process and aren't quite so dependent on the teacher as they might otherwise be. Next, we want students to select evidence to showcase their work. This evidence should be personally salient. What happens here when we think about this phase is really thinking about the importance of evidence and what its intended outcome is. If the evidence is intended to spark really meaningful, in-depth reflection for the student, and the evidence is exactly for the student, and they're not really looking for feedback from the teacher as much as they are documenting their journey, then the evidence doesn't necessarily matter to anyone but the student. However, if the evidence is something that the student really needs feedback on from the teacher or critical friend or whoever they're working with, then the evidence does matter. So for example, I'll use my personal life. I hate bartering. It is my least favorite activity to do in Spanish, which was my target language growing up. It makes me uncomfortable. I know that I pay too much money because I quit the conversation sooner than I should, but I really, truly dislike it. Well, I was committed the last time I was in Mexico to getting a low price on these bracelets on the beach that I wanted to buy for my kids. So I went, the guy started off at $20. My boss, I know, got them for $5. I got him down to $7, and I was pretty proud with my $7. So me as my language learner reflection, that bracelet means a lot to me, actually. Nobody else can give me feedback on how well I bartered or my grammatical accuracy, but I know how I engage. And so that bracelet is actually an artifact that I might upload into Linguafolio Online for my own personal reflection. However, like I said, if I want my teacher's feedback on how well I formed my utterances, or if I used the right register, or if I was aware of certain bartering strategies and things like that, then I need an actual recording. So this is something to think about with your students, to let them know certainly your expectations and provide them a plethora of choices when they're uploading that evidence. And then you'll see Linguafolio Online allows you to do the quick evaluation of proficiency and the like that we already mentioned. And that brings us back to the goals at the end. So some keys to success with Linguafolio Online: certainly set goals with students, alongside students, and engage in backwards design to meet those goals. We did a study with a few different teachers in the state of Oregon who are using Linguafolio Online, and those who struggled with backwards design really struggled with incorporating can-do statements into their classrooms in general. So Linguafolio Online was obviously difficult to use. Students, or have students self-assess in an ongoing fashion. Weave LFO into the fabric of the classroom. What we know from research is if students don't engage with the reflective cycle consistently enough, and I'll put an asterisk by enough, I'll try to explain it quickly, but if they don't engage consistently enough, they actually undervalue and dislike the portfolio system itself. The only research, we haven't done research in secondary yet, or elementary in terms of frequency, but we do have research from introductory students and post-secondary. And what we see is in a 16-week semester, if they use Linguafolio Online or the European language portfolio, it's been done in 2 contexts, at least 4 times, then they associate a very high task value with the reflective process in general. If it's less than that, they actually are discouraged by it. And so that's something you want to do, is make sure that they're consistently involved. Next, obviously, a proficiency-based classroom goes hand in hand with the can-do statements, and keep on using reflection to facilitate new goals. The most common struggles are typically the reverse of what I just said would be your keys to success, but the other piece I want to bring out is that students, particularly introductory language learners, undervalue their own abilities. They're so overwhelmed by what they don't know that the can-do statements actually overwhelm them more sometimes. So really help them understand what the expectations are related to each can-do statement, and it actually starts to increase their strength and their motivation because they start to become very excited about what they're learning. So critical features, you'll just see some snapshots really quickly so you get an idea of what these look like in the platform itself, and these are all taken from the website. To create accounts, you just sign in, you click Get Growing. Every teacher gets 1 free teacher account, so you can always look on it from the teacher side, so you could start that today if you wanted to, and just go to linguafolio.uoregon.edu, click Get Growing, and one will automatically be generated for you. You add new groups quite easily. So groups are just however you've grouped the students. Most teachers group by class. So you'll see first period, second period, third period across the board. Some teachers group by proficiency level in the class. So you'll see group 1A, first period, things along those lines. To set up student accounts, you can do it 3 different ways. Give your students what's called a join code for their class, and they can type that in and create their own account. You can add them as individuals from the dashboard by clicking this button that says Add Student, or you can do a batch upload feature where you upload the students' usernames, emails, and their passwords. This just gives you a quick snapshot of what it looks like. If you create a non-unique username, no big deal, you'll get an error and you can fix it. And be aware that there's a 6-character requirement for both usernames and passwords. One last thing is that emails only have to look like emails. So you'll see sknight@email2.com is not a real email, but the system will accept it. We've designed it that way for different school districts that have privacy issues associated with student emails, but that still gives us a way to help filter and find accounts should students have any technical issues. We also have a feature called can-do clusters. These are essentially groupings of can-do statements that you want to give to your students. This can be done in a variety of ways. Most teachers do it by unit, particularly in post-secondary. Secondary, we see, or particularly in secondary. In post-secondary, we see a lot by chapter, unfortunately still, but however you want to group your can-do statements. For intensive programs, we can even see by week or by day. And you can give certain dates to your can-do clusters so they only appear to students within those dates if you want to really help them focus on meaningful targets for a specific time period. And there you go. It's a pretty simple process. That's all it looks like right there. And within it, you just select can-do statements. You'll notice all these arrows because the page is a little complex, but at the top you select your mode, then you select your level, and those related can-do statements will immediately rise up to the top. You see at the bottom, you can type in your own customized can-do statements. And I will say, as soon as you select a check mark, it automatically saves, which is nice. And you can double check by looking at the parentheticals under modes. As those numbers are increasing, that means all of them are being assigned, and to unassign them, you simply have to uncheck. It's a pretty easy interface. The assignment creating feature is the same as the can-do cluster creating feature, except you can provide a specific assignment description. It can be one can-do statement or a series of can-do statements for like end-of-unit projects and things along those lines. And so you can see it, the learner dashboard. At the top, they can upload evidence. If they choose the upload evidence feature at the top, they select the can-do statements that the evidence goes with. So they can select from the ones you've assigned, they can select themselves, and they can select multiple can-do statements. They also can upload to an individual can-do statement within an assignment or a can-do cluster at the bottom of the dashboard, which was unable to fit in the previous screenshot. What's neat about the top of the upload, the top of the dashboard that I wanted to emphasize for you all is that it walks students through thinking through what their proficiency is. So if they select from any of the can-do statements, they'll be asked to identify mode, and you'll see they can identify level as well as sub-level. There's text to help them through it with examples. So this is a nice way to get them associated and familiar with how we operationalize the concept of proficiency within our field. And then they always self-evaluate before they upload the evidence. So where do you think you are in relationship to this can-do statement? And then you will be able to upload the evidence as soon as you have done it. And you can also review all the evidence samples you have ever uploaded for that one evidence in the same spot, which is nice. So if you need help, there are a few places to go. This was the website I mentioned earlier, lfonetwork.uoregon.edu. There are technology tutorials with PDFs that walk you through step-by-step, similar to the screenshots you just saw with arrows pointing to where to click and things along those lines. We also have a welcome packet with example activities you can download so you can see how different ways to, just different tools, like there's a unit planner, there are quite a few tools at your disposal. There are FAQs, we have links to the successful actual can-do statements. And as I said, we have an autonomous learning module that we've created specifically for learners that we're in the final review processes now. So those should be published by the end of the week at the latest. Then obviously there's the Successful website as well. You'll see the new updates that are coming to Linguafolio there. And there are great plethora of resources under LF for learners and LF for teachers that will help you get started as well. Some videos and handouts, things along those lines. You can always contact us as well at lfolio@uoregon.edu. If you're not sure if you have an account, go there. You can also just email there if you encounter any technical issues along the way. And then if you want your students to use it for free, unfortunately, this is not a very succinct URL, but I can actually send these slides you all's way if you want to share them with everybody, so no one has to go copying this down. But this YouTube video walks your students through how to set up their free account and what to do, and it tells them everything they need to type in along the way to get started there. And that brings us to questions. I feel like I spoke a little too long, more than intended, so I apologize for that.
No, because it's a lot of information.
It is a lot, it is a lot. But yes, I will share the presentation with you. Absolutely happy to send those slides along. That's easy.
You didn't mention anything about interculturality.
So those, the intercultural statements are also included on the platform. Those are all there. You have to select them within the modes when you're assigning them. That, given the structure of the benchmarks and the indicators and all of that, that was the only way to show them in the platform. So that is something to actually, thank you for bringing that up, Jackie. That's something to talk with your students about, to make sure that they understand how those things are connected, and also how the extent to which they are not connected in terms of their can-do statements and their application, and there's context. How much does it cost per student per year? Thank you. It costs $2 per student per academic year. We do offer discounts for 1,500 students or more. If you're looking at a district or something along those lines, where it usually drops to $150 per year, that being $1.50 per student per year. That being said, we also understand the reality. I mean, I taught forever at Title I schools myself. We also understand the economic reality that for some schools, $2 per student per year is nothing. And for other schools, it's a stumbling block, and it's something they can't overcome. So if you're interested and you all can't afford it, please always, I'll type my email in the chat actually, nights@uoregon.edu. Please send me an email and we'll see what we can do. Try to figure something out for you.
So I'm in a department where right now I teach Spanish 1 and 3, and another teacher teaches Spanish 2. And so if he weren't to use it, like if I want to start all my ones on it, but so their stuff would just kind of stay in limbo, and then I could renew for Spanish 3 if they choose that.
Yes. It would stay in our database, and then when you renew for Spanish 3, all of their evidence should still be there. We're also designing, currently it's slated to be released on August 15th, an export feature. That's actually a critical feature that I wish we already had, but it allows students to export, similar to like a Facebook page, a curated list of evidence samples that are organized by proficiency level and mode, as well as the intercultural statements that they could share with whomever they wish to share them with. So it could be to you, it could be to a future employer, with a college application, however they want to share that, they could.
Or like if they switch schools and just be like, here's everything.
Yes, and as long as, and their accounts will actually follow them even if they switch schools. So this is especially important in our transient districts. But if they start off with you and go to the school, 5 miles away, as long as they know their student or their user ID, that you've created that 6-digit ID, 6-character ID, then it will follow them wherever they go. The only exception to that is if the school strikes a specific privacy agreement in which we have to delete the student data at the end of the year. And some schools have requested that. And so if that happens, then they'll have to export it and just have it. And they could always upload it again later, but it wouldn't follow in their neat packaged way that it does right now.
One of the beauties of Linguafolio, I think, is, well, there are two particular ones that I find very effective for teachers and for schools and districts. One is if you have a curriculum that is already has targets, proficiency targets, it is so nice to help facilitate that record of students demonstrating those can-do statements. I don't know if anybody uses the JCPS curriculum. I'm sure Fayette County also has a curriculum that is tied to the I can statements, and many other schools out there might. But I know with the JCPS modules, each one of those units has the I can statements that are tied to a specific sub-level. And that, it just, dovetails with the Linguafolio perfectly for uploading that demonstration, those pieces of evidence. The other thing is performance-based grading. You've got everything you need there on record for how that student is performing at what level. So, you can, what we often advise teachers to do is set your proficiency target for the B grade. If they exceed that, then it would be an A grade. And, CD below that, however close you're coming to it. So it becomes very easy to do the performance-based grading.
What has been particularly, thank you, Jacque, and what has been particularly transformative and helpful in some districts is to really link the reflective cycle itself with 21st century skills and engaging students that way. And then they have another justification to have the tool in their classroom because there are pretty strong connections between building reflective capacity as well as those 21st century skills that are so important in K-12 and everywhere. They're just actually spoken about in K-12 versus other contexts.
I have another question for you.
Yes.
Just, I remember you mentioning using it at least 4 times with students to enhance their perception of its utility, if I understood that correctly. I forgot the time frame in which you said that.
So the research that was completed was done in a 16-week semester. So
Okay,
that's
16
about
weeks.
once a month. I can tell you that just from anecdotally, also my personal experience, to have a bit of reflection every single day in the classroom, and we're talking an exit ticket, something with a Likert scale, that's something that's pretty easy to start incorporating immediately, and then have the students always be engaged in that reflective cycle so that when you come to the end of a week or the end of the unit, they're ready to go back and reflect on what they've done instead of having to wade through a lot of information. In my own classroom, I did one in-depth reflection per week in addition to the exit tickets. And then I also did one at the close of the unit. We had one whole day where the students looked at all of their evidence samples and wrote me a cover letter. They organized them and wrote me a cover letter about their strengths primarily, and then also one thing that was not related to their strengths, one skill that they wanted to work on as well. And that worked incredibly well for me. I worked in an IB program at the time, and I saw our IB scores skyrocket for doing it once we did that. I'm an N of 1, but the correlate, it sold me. I'll tell you that. It was certainly transformative in general. The students really understood what language learning entailed differently than the previous students that I had, where I didn't focus quite as much on the reflective process. So it transformed the way that I teach, the way we talked about teaching our learning and talked in the classroom, and it was really nice, exciting.
Thanks.
Of course.
In this time of online teaching, it's really nice to be able to have something where you have set the goals, set the targets, and then you have suggested activities, and then you even let students suggest however they might get themselves to that particular level. It puts more ownership on them rather than on you as the teacher. So it makes that asynchronous time, span of learning more effective.
You mentioned that there is a way to get it for free. I was wondering if that's less features or just more hoops for the kids to jump through to sign up.
On the kids side, it's very simple. It's essentially they have to have the join code, which is in that YouTube video. And once they have the join code, they really just have to type in their name, username, email, the join code, and it populates them into the group, and they are free to use it. The only limitation on this free account is that sure. We all have our kids at home, sorry. I cannot speak right now. I'll talk to you in a moment. Okay, my apologies for that. Because of privacy issues and how we had to set up the accounts to provide the free accounts and for that to be within our capacity, as just our monitoring capacity, to be honest, is that there is no way for the teacher to see their free account right now. If you had your own teacher account, you could include the student in your group and you could see what they had done. But you would have to create your own teacher account and then create a group of students and put that student into your group in order to be able to see it. Does that make sense? Okay. So slightly limited, but students can access everything. There's nothing that the student can't see. You can't see the students as easily as you would in your own classrooms.
If there's no more questions, we can move to our small groups. Did you have specific discussion questions, Jacque, or?
Actually, I have one more question.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Just make sure I understood it correctly. So the paid version is the version in which we create classrooms and we can see the student activity, and it's $2 per student in each classroom.
Per academic year, yes.
Okay, all right, got it. That's it.
Perfect. Okay, I have to jump off now, but thank you all again for your time. Feel free to email me as you think of questions or chew on them over the next few days as well, and I'm happy to help out. And I'll make sure, like I said, that Jennifer and Jacque get a copy of the presentation, so you have those URLs right there.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
We'll
see you on Thursday.
Yes. Bye.
I think if we do breakout rooms, perhaps we want to talk about if anyone has used it before, how they've used it. If not, how might you use it? How do you see this as being helpful or not? So if you have any questions, they can come out.
Okay. All right. Well, let me set up the rooms.
We might just do 2 rooms since we don't have that many people.
Yeah, we don't have so many today. We do 3. That gives us 3 to 4 people per room. So, all right. So you'll get an invitation. Go ahead and click on that. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes.
No, I mean, like, I've heard of it many times.
Me too.
I've been exposed to teachers who like tried to keep physical portfolios with the Linguafolio printouts, and I never got behind that.
Online is it would be much more streamlined.
Yeah, I mean, I have trouble even getting my kids to like I have them keep a binder, and they just want to throw all of their stuff away, and I'm like, guys, this is good writing. Please put this in your binder. And they just don't have the motivation to do that. So I kind of like that they could just take a picture of something and then I'd be like, now you can throw it away because you've uploaded it. But I don't know.
Keeping it digital is great. We're a very Google classroom, Google school.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see putting these 2 things together, especially here, and I don't know how it is in your district, but it looks like we may be doing some NTI or something this fall. I don't know. Unfortunately, that's the sucky part, is it's all up in the air, so we don't even know what to prepare for this summer. But if we did have to do this, I can see this totally being the perfect way to, with the goal setting and with the modes and everything, giving them something a little more comprehensible, a little more something that they can grasp and put in there and have it for themselves.
I think that's the beauty of this, and then also Nearpod, which was what we discussed last week. Like, both of Linguafolio and Nearpod work well if you're in a physical classroom, and they also work well if you're not in the physical classroom. So that's sort of what we've been trying to do in these meetups is, not only talk about NTI, because, for most of us that's already over, but like, we don't know what's going to be coming up in the fall. So like, if you have these tools that can kind of pivot back and forth, then maybe you feel a little bit more prepared.
Yep.
I don't use Linguafolio. I mean, I have 550 kids, so, and I'm a special area teacher. Like, my principal's not paying for this. But, like, we do it just on paper using, like my second grade through fifth grade get interactive notebooks. And we just, like, some people use those, I think, more as, like, note-taking and, like, kind of like a textbook. I use it more as a portfolio. So, like, they don't glue things in until closer to the end of a unit, and it's like writing samples. We don't do, we've even put in like QR codes that went to videos of them talking. I mean, it's a lot of
That's a great idea.
work, but I do the whole cycle. I was actually taking notes about the self-reflection cycle because I do some of it well, but not all of it. I hit everything, but maybe not in the same, I don't give the same weight to everything, but we do goal setting at the beginning of the year, 3rd through 5th grade. We don't talk about the strategies a lot. So I guess maybe that's where with NTI or some of these things, I can kind of help them figure out, okay, what strategies are you going to use?
Yeah.
We monitor it using the interactive notebooks, but then also I do the Si Se Puede bubbles, like they color in during class based on their proficiency level. And then my self-reflection, we just don't have time in elementary school. Like for me, like it's on the way out the door. I have like a green, yellow, and a red piece of paper, and they just like tap their finger on how they thought they did that day. And most of them, what's that?
How often do you see them?
Twice a week.
Oh.
For 25 minutes.
Well, little kids are sponges. I'm sure they're getting more than we think they are.
I think it takes way longer actually for them to catch on. Like I have to like narrow. Like I have to be so targeted in what I'm teaching because like they'll sit there and pretend like they're just more like easy going with it, not so much sponges. Like they're not picking up on it, but they're just like, they're not going to complain in the same way like a high schooler would be like, what are you saying? They're just like, Miss Kennedy talks funny, but we have fun in her class. I had to get on a student teacher this year because he kept trying to switch between first person and third person, which totally makes sense if you're teaching high schoolers. But I was like, listen, they're not talking about other people, okay? They're 6. They only want to talk about themselves. This is the only person that exists in their world.
High school wants to talk about themselves too. I get that. So, she was talking about, the bartering story. I teach German. So, in my case, I don't know what you guys teach. I know you teach Spanish. But in my case, I wouldn't have a way for them to record themselves in a situation, in a live situation. Now I do live in Cincinnati, if we get back to Oktoberfest and stuff like that, they could potentially, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
So, where would you find those real world connections for a German speaker?
Well, I mean, that's where maybe, where were we talking a couple weeks ago? I forget.
Online or something, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we were talking about setting up, it was Flipgrid. It was like setting up connections like with another, like maybe a German teacher's class and having the kids respond to each other back and forth on Flipgrid.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Or Twitter. I know that's not, I don't think that's cool for the young kids now. It's all about like TikTok. Maybe if they can make a German TikTok or.
Exactly. Yeah, they love TikTok. That's true.
So, yeah, just different things like that.
What do you teach, Catherine?
Spanish, K-12. Yeah.
I think Jeffrey and I are the only German teachers on there. I know Addison teaches French.
Yes.
Well, it's a similar situation for French. With Spanish, you can kind of find around here a little bit, but that's our cross to bear. It's no biggie. But I definitely see, I can definitely see good uses out of that.
I've always liked the idea of it, and I've looked into it, but again, it's just, if I was a high school teacher, I think I would probably ask if we could please get it. I think it would be super easy.
I think our club could pay for $2 a student,
Yeah, that's not that bad compared to some of the other things. I expected it to be more.
I think my principal, if we did all three of us, all three of the language teachers, I think he would probably pay for that. Because we're talking about maybe 300 students. $600. I don't think he would have a problem with that. So.
No, and that shows, 21st century skills.
Right.
And if you're doing like seal of biliteracy too, I mean.
Exactly.
You've got
another argument
all your evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You could upload,
Mm-hmm.
test scores into it in addition to writing samples.
Right. That's a great idea. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
But he's very for the seal of biliteracy. We were going to take the test this year and actually get that on our diplomas, but that didn't happen.
I think Fayette County still managed to pull it off, but I know like the reason you haven't seen Laura Roche on a lot of these meetings is because she's been trying to coordinate all of that craziness right now.
More power to her.
I'm sorry I can't make it. I'm like, it's fine. We got it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm going to send out a little message. We got maybe like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
But yes, keep talking.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think that their Flipgrid videos could be uploaded into a lingual folio?
They're downloadable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sometimes the kids, like, if they're having tech issues, I would like tell them download it before you hand it in, because sometimes they don't, they just upload so slow, and there's that little red bar across the top and they don't even see it. And then they shut their lid on their computer and the upload stops.
Oh, no.
They refresh and it's gone.
Right.
And I'm like, sorry, y'all, like, I didn't get it, so there's no way I can grade it. But usually my recordings are like 2 minutes, so I'm like, just do it again.
I think you can also upload a video, so they could take the video on their device,
Yeah.
and have it saved on their device, and then just upload it to Flipgrid rather than recording it on Flipgrid.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, that's, using 2 different things. That's really cool.
So,
Yeah.
I also just like download some because I want to share them with people because they're so good or whatever. But, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out if it would work well with Google Classroom, because like I said, we are very Google Classroom.
well, that's a question we can ask: is does it integrate well with Google Classroom?
She said it like doesn't really integrate. Like you can grab the link, or I bet you could just download as Microsoft Word or download as, convert it. But if the link is set to like be shareable, especially if you like don't limit it to just your school domain, in case they move or whatever.
Yeah.
You say anybody with this link can access this document.
Yeah, that's what you would need to do, I think. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, I took that test yesterday, so I'm still the level 1 test. Oh my gosh.
Oh, for Google?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have that.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to get kicked out.
All right.
TV.
Yeah.
Finished up. Okay.
You're welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Uh-oh, Lydia.
Lydia.
It's all mixed up.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any remaining questions, or anything insightful that came out of your discussions that you'd like to share for the good of the group? We said in our group, we were talking about how this would be good to go along with the seal of biliteracy as well, for collecting evidence for that. So I know Pam, that's how you're going to sell it to your principal, right? Anybody else?
We're a talkative group today.
I know. It's the rain.
I know.
I think we're all just sort of shell shocked by a weird ending to our school.
Yeah.
Well, and worried about starting potentially on NTI in the fall is very daunting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Did you guys see that article about how they're talking about we have to come up with 4 scenarios? And I don't know how you can teach in the classroom and then have it go remote. You know, how are they going to see everything? I don't know. And hear everything, you know, if they're at home. So it's yeah.
Well, and I think I made this point in our group too, where like Linguafolio and what we presented last week, Nearpod, if you weren't in one of the sessions last week, I recommend going back and watching the Tuesday one, not the Thursday one. Tuesday was Madeline. Thursday was me jumping in last minute.
Oh no, you were good.
Which was good too. I would recommend it.
You should watch it today. But anyway, like both of these platforms are flexible. So like you can use Nearpod live in the classroom, or you can make it student paced and have them do it during NTI. Linguafolio, this is something you could and should be using if we're in a classroom, but it's also a very good tool if we're not in the classroom. So
yeah, I think that's key right there. If you know, if you're not in the classroom, I mean, it's a gold mine, really.
Yeah,
to help you plan your lessons much easier in that kind of a format if it's NTI, I think. I mean, just kind of thinking ahead.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been, and I never really got into it during this NTI, but they've been doing choice boards, and I always have trouble kind of putting those in my grade book and stuff because they can hit so many different modes, and you know, but it'd be kind of nice so they could say like, oh, I played a video game with people who were speaking Spanish, so I'm going to upload that in, you know, kind of like that self-reflection of what does that count for, because it counts for a lot. But me kind of putting like, oh, these are the I can statements for the entire choice board is a little like confusing and overwhelming because they're not all going to hit the same ones.
True, but if you did it a couple of times and then you know, switch around what they have to choose from, then you know.
Or have like columns, like you have to choose one from each column.
Yeah, that's
each column is a mode.
But even within those, like the listening ICANNs that I've been using, not everything kind of matches the same one, and my grade book ends up looking kind of crazy because my Spanish 3s, like I have all the ICANNs in the Infinite Campus. Anyway, but I think it'd be nice if they reflect on it. It's like I have to reflect on it, like which ones have you met by doing these activities, but they can insert them where they feel like they've really shown off.
I could see that, yeah, combining and making it good.
You have columns with the modes, and they could fill in with this, you know, they would have to have so many, but then they would have options to where they need improvement in certain ones, so they could set their goals and fill in those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I decided as I was watching this, like I'm really good about the goal setting and the collecting evidence, but not so great on the reflection piece. And a lot of mine is just time constraints, but I could get better.
But those time constraints are more on the learner when you do it through the NTI, and they have to reflect at home. I mean, that can happen in the classroom too, but yeah. And I was saying in our group that research that she was referring to by Ali Muller at University of Nebraska, Lincoln, a lot of that was focused on not just self-regulation, but on motivation, and how the use of Linguafolio and the reflective piece created motivation, which, you know, drives that learner. We're all about engagement. So.
Absolutely. Even my my 4th and 5th graders, we talk a lot about the proficiency levels and that pyramid at the beginning of the year. And I had a student teacher 2 years ago come in, and they were asking her questions, and they asked if she had superior Spanish, and I mean, they were going, and she had distinguished Spanish, and she didn't know if she did that at the beginning of the year, but she was just like, "Oh yeah, my Spanish is pretty good." And I was like, "No, sweetheart, like, where are you on this pyramid? Because that's what they're asking you." Trying to make sure you got the right credentials. So
I see some good use of teachers doing peer evaluation, peer assessment with students in the beginning of the year, just to make sure they know how to judge their own performance on the various sub-levels.
Oh, that's a good idea. Well, guys, it is 12:02. Does anyone else have anything else quickly? Okay, well, this is just a reminder that our KWA Fall Conference has moved online September 19th, 2020. And we are accepting proposals for sessions until June 1st. So please submit a proposal. We are also accepting nominations for Outstanding Teacher of the Year awards and our other awards as well. So check out our awards pages and contact the presidents of your AATSP, AATF, AATG, all of the language ones. I can't remember, KAJLT, KLCT.
It's okay.
Nell, and what's the one for Latin? I can't remember.
A Classics League.
Yes.
ACL something, right?
Yes.
Yeah.